At this point in time, it's starting to feel like companies are shoehorning artificial intelligence into absolutely everything. And while so much of this is just capitalism doing what capitalism does, after all, why make shoes when you can just get rich by saying you're making AI now? This time, things feel a lot different. This is not the same as the blockchain Web 3.0 NFT grift we saw a few years ago. No. AI clearly has staying power, and however you might feel about the environmental and economical implications of it, people are using it. And AI is extremely polarizing, to say the least. Some of you watching will love it and use it every day, and some of you absolutely despise everything it stands for. Personally, I think a lot of what's currently on the market right now is novel at best. A lot of it just feels like corporations chasing the next big thing without providing any real utility or value. Generally, I'm pretty underwhelmed by generative AI. I often find the output to be largely derivative, inconsistent, and unreliable, though I do see value in using it for conceptualization and ideation, and I can understand the use case for it as placeholders or programmer art. But it just doesn't hold up in a production environment, and I'm not even sure why we'd want to rely on tools that take away the fun, creative stuff anyway. For me, and I think where most folks have landed, it's often about utility. Many of us are now using AI to get help with our code. Instead of scouring the internet for hours to find that one Stack Overflow post from 5 years ago, many of these models can help solve our problem or point us towards solutions in much less time, putting us back into our workflow much sooner. So I'm all for AI models as tools, models that speed up some of my workflows and remove the repetitive, boilerplate tasks that come along with game development. And this should come as no surprise. This channel is about building tooling and automating tasks so that you can focus on developing, or designing, or, well, art. Much of game development is just mundane, and so I welcome anything that will remove the mundane parts and allow you to focus on the part of the process that you prefer most. And this is where Unity comes into the picture, and the topic of today's video, Unity's new AI assistant. Now, full disclosure, Unity have paid me to make this video, and the whole thing has been run by them for review before being published. However, they've frequently been open to valid criticism and feedback, which, if you're a regular viewer of this channel, you'll know I frequently provide, so keep that in mind while you're watching. Hi there, I'm Matt, and welcome to Game Dev Guide. So Unity's AI assistant, what is it and how does it work? Well, the pitch is that it's an agentic model, meaning that it can understand your project and what you're trying to accomplish. It's built around Unity, so it has a deep contextual knowledge of the engine and understands how various tools and packages work. As you can imagine then, it's likely to be able to comprehend a lot more of what you might be trying to accomplish than a generic AI model would. Unity have said that because of this, it's able to assist you in not only understanding the engine, but also help you architect your project and even generate scripts, build tools, and implement elements into your scenes for you. A pretty big swing, honestly, and it sort of sounded too good to be true. In my experience, AI fucks up a lot. It's good at doing lots of little things in isolation, but getting a comprehensive understanding of what you're trying to do and outputting something that's not only passable, but actually good the first time you interact with it is incredibly rare. So, as you can imagine, I had to see this for myself. I wanted to investigate just how useful the AI assistant could be, especially when it came to building out a prototype. So, my initial premise was simple. How quickly could I get the basic framework of a puzzle bubble style game up and running? I downloaded the Unity AI package, which only took a couple of minutes to install and get running. However, if you're a user who has most of their projects saved as local only like me, you will need to create a Unity Cloud project and link it in order for this to work. So I set that up as well. After setting everything up, you can click this AI button to see everything on offer. Initially, I expected this to just open the assistant window, but there are another couple of options in here that, frankly, I wish weren't in here at all. So let's just move straight past those and open up the assistant instead. Right then, so the cool thing about the AI assistant is that it comes in 3 modes. You have Ask mode, Plan mode, and Agent mode. We'll explore all 3 of these throughout the video, but for a quick primer, Ask mode is a more simple query version of the agent that can contextually review your project and answer questions. It's probably the version of AI that you're going to be most familiar with, and after messing around with this tool for the last week or so, I'd argue it's probably the underdog of the assistant for me. More on that later. Agent mode is the full fat star of the show for the assistant, which I'm going to be talking about in a lot more detail, but essentially it's the part of the assistant that can go off and do things and make various modifications to your project and code. Plan mode is the kind of precursor to agent, as it lets you bounce your ideas around first and come up with a scoped set of parameters for the agent to then execute on. I quite like the idea of sort of giving the agent some guardrails and knowing ahead of time what it's going to do, One of the main issues with AI is throwing a prompt into a black box and not really knowing what you're going to get out of it. So the plan mode kind of gives you some reassurance ahead of letting the agent loose on your project. So I set the assistant into plan mode and gave it this prompt. I want to make a puzzle bobble, bust a move style game where there is a layout of circular objects at the top stacked vertically towards the bottom with different colors. There's also going to be a little shooter at the bottom where the player can aim and fire bubbles onto the stack. If the colors combine to make more than 3 of a certain color in any direction, they are removed and the player scores points. Any bubbles that are connected to the stack that was removed are also removed. How would we go about setting up the basic configuration for this? And here's the thing that surprised me the most. The assistant begins by looking over the project. It evaluates the state of things and then calculates the work involved. It then presents you with the plan. So in this instance, it figured out what I wanted to do and understood the point of reference, presenting me with a markdown file with the plan. It then asks if it can execute the plan. So let's see how that goes. And look, I know it's supposed to do this, but watching it kind of just rapidly do stuff in the scene view and see scripts appearing in the project is absolutely wild. There were some minor issues. It wasn't actually showing the bubbles. The sprite was being removed for some reason, but I asked the assistant to figure out what's happening and it managed to fix the issue. I was also running into some problems with the main mechanic of the bubbles getting to actually stick, so I tried to get the assistant to fix it, but it kind of failed a couple of times. Eventually, I was able to share the console log into it, which is quite a neat feature. I like that you can do that. And it used that error message to better understand the context and immediately solve the problem. And so in about 20 minutes, I had a working prototype of the base mechanics. I can't pretend like that's not impressive. I think if I were doing this on my own, it'd have taken me 20 minutes just to figure out how the hell to draw this grid, let alone any of the gameplay. So yeah, I was kind of mind blown at this point. With the basics in place, I figured I would try to go a little bit further and get a game loop working. So let's head back into plan mode and prompt the assistant for some changes. And then let's have the agent take over. It quickly starts refactoring the game for a game over state and adding in the suggested mechanics. I take the creation for a spin and notice a couple of things that I'd like to tweak and improve, so I work with the agent to clean things up a bit. It's at this point that I was starting to realize that I might have to rethink this video, because arguably this prototype was coming together quickly. Within an hour and a half, I have a full game loop. I'm frankly blown away by how fast this thing has come together. There is no way that I could have built this in an hour and a half by myself. And so now, dear viewer, we enter into the part of the video that I was not expecting to make. You see, I spent the rest of the development session that day just working on art and trying to replicate some of the design from the source material. So I replaced the various blocks with somewhat more readable wood pieces that I put together in Photoshop, replaced the AI bubble sprite with my own sprites for each color, adding a background using some art from Unsplash, and generally just worked to make the prototype that this AI assistant had pretty much coded entirely for me look more presentable. You see, that's the thing. I spent that night thinking about this a lot, and I began trying to tackle the whirlwind of thoughts in my brain because, to be blunt, I wasn't expecting this to be such a smooth process. This is the first time I've really started to understand and consider the use of AI like this. As I said before, up until this point, I'd mostly been using AI to assist me with small tasks. Help me with a small math problem, quickly give me a boilerplate script to do this simple thing, or explain some obscure part of an API I'm not super familiar with. And the results had always been passable at best. I'd often have to find myself needing to clarify things or rewrite a prompt a couple of times to get the result I was looking for. But this process was not that. I had very little trouble getting the assistant to do what I wanted it to do, and I kind of just sat back and watched it produce work that was difficult to fault. I can see a junior programmer going away with a task like this and returning with similar results. Look, it's entirely possible that the core concept of the game I'm trying to build is simple enough, and I lucked out there. But it's hard to argue with the result of maybe 2 hours of actually working with the assistant. This is not something I would have been able to build myself in 2 hours. 2 days, maybe, but not 2 hours. And while the speed and velocity of what it had created was impressive in and of itself, I was feeling conflicted about what my role in this was, because arguably what the assistant is able to do isn't exactly magical, but it was taking a lot of the process off of my hands. I wrote basically nothing of my own that first day, and so I had to ask myself, was this problematic or not? Like, as a game developer, where do my ambitions lie? Is it really in code? Because, look, you could argue that if this was a team project, the assistant is taking on the role of the engineer, and my role is that of the game director or designer. I'm focusing on the bigger picture and instructing my team on how I'd like it to be implemented. Ultimately, that is the part of game development that I'm most drawn to, and programming is kind of just a means to get there. So do I just give up programming entirely? Am I okay with that? Or does it just mean that there's more scope for more complex games? I'm not really sure, and it's still something I'm trying to comprehend. I'll have a little bit more to say about this as I give my summary of the experience at the end of this video, but suffice to say, I wanted to keep seeing how far I could push this thing. If I was really feeling this way after 2 hours, would I still feel this way after a couple of days? Just how far could I get with the assistant doing most of the work? And was it going to continue to be this painless? So I began the second day with a new plan. How quickly can we take it from this basic framework into something that might resemble an actual game that someone can play? To do that then, we needed levels. I told the assistant what I wanted, and it came up with a plan for me on how to produce a level-based system for the game. Surprisingly, it actually kept the previous concept in mind and implemented this little endless mode toggle, which I thought was interesting. Within less than an hour of day 2, I now have a level tool in the game that lets me paint a grid and an additional space down here where I can design the initial fire sequence to use. I then tweaked things a bit further by making sure that I could define the valid colors for the level and that there were some certain rules in place for how it was going to pick those available colors. And then I focused on improving various edge cases that would improve the overall UX of the game. The assistant has this pretty neat feature where you can take a snapshot of your editor and annotate on things alongside the prompt you give it. I ended up using this a few times to communicate the various bugs and edge cases I wanted to solve. And again, I was pretty impressed with how well it would understand what I was trying to do. The plan mode also has this neat feature where it'll ask you questions about a prompt you've given it, and you can choose from one of its suggestions to help inform the plan it'll come up with. But I will say, some of the questions it asks you are a little cryptic. Anyway, towards the middle of the second day, I pretty much had a basic framework in place. And if you're wondering, it cost me about 500 credits, with the agent doing pretty much everything to get here. So about a quarter of the monthly credit budget so far, which doesn't seem too bad given that I'm not trying to be economical at all here. But yeah, at this point, the project was in a state where I could kind of just do my own thing. The main mechanics were all more or less there, and the gameplay was starting to feel pretty good. So I spent the rest of the day working on art, polish, and game feel stuff. I cannot stress to you enough just how much of the development time on this project was now mostly being consumed by art-related or design tasks. I spent a good chunk of the day in Shader Graph just kind of being creative and feeling out a shader for the bubbles. Interestingly, I invoked the ask mode in the assistant for some of these bits because I wanted to see if it could help point me in the direction for some of the shader stuff I was trying to do. And it was extremely useful in saving me time there. But yeah, essentially this was where a chunk of my time went that day. I was flip-flopping between Photoshop and Shader Graph to get the parameters right for how I wanted the bubbles to look. The following day, I just focused on the last few things that would turn this into a game. So I used the agent to help me build out scoring and combos. And again, spot the theme here, it really did not take long at all to get that working. I then wanted to move all the UI to UITK. And finally, the most egregious task of the morning, implementing an actual level architecture for the game. Oh, no, never mind. That was also just a breeze. I now have 10 levels that I've designed, and the game will move through each of them as you complete them. I swear to you, at this point, I really am trying to see just how far it can understand what I'm trying to do before it breaks. It is holding up far better than I expected. It was also at this point that I discovered one of the main drawbacks of relying on the agent to do most of the work, which was boredom. I was having fun playing the game, but for the bits in between, it felt a lot like that downtime while you're waiting for scripts to recompile. Not exactly a feeling I sought after. So I switched the tool into ask mode, and I used its output to do some of the tasks I wanted to achieve here myself, and finally feel like I actually had some architectural investment into this project. One of the plus sides to using ask mode is that in most instances, it's much cheaper than the other two modes. So if you are trying to be economical, I suggest working with it in this mode. It still has context of everything and is able to read your existing architecture. So it often gives you the scripts you need to implement or the code snippets and tells you where to put them. You just have to, go and do that yourself. I did switch back into the agent mode towards the end of the day though, as it was time to build out a main menu. And we all know how much of a pain boilerplate UI can be and how long it takes. So knowing the assistant could probably produce the framework for the menu in less than a couple of minutes, it was extremely enticing to do it that way instead. It even helped me add some juice to the logo I designed, and Ask Mode solved a weird quirk of UITK for me that I think I might have spent hours trying to diagnose otherwise. So yeah, shout out Ask Mode for saving my sanity, and Unity, please fix this issue. It's now the start of day 4, and this is the last stretch. It's time to do some final tweaks and turn it into a piece of actual software that you can play. To be perfectly upfront, if I didn't have to make this video, I probably would have kept going and seen how far I could go and how quickly I could expand the scope of this thing into something bigger. But it was time, and I think I'd managed to get a grasp on enough of the AI assistant at this point for the video. The contextual stuff still continued to blow my mind though. I asked it pretty generically to make an editor button that would start at an initial scene rather than playing from the scene I'm currently in, and it correctly inferred that the front end was the initial entry point for the game. I don't know if I'm supposed to be impressed or scared. Maybe both. But yeah, I then used the assistant to help me clean up some of the level-to-level stuff, adding in a scene transition to move between levels more smoothly. I had it help me implement a music manager and sound effects manager, and I had it do the most boilerplate and most painful thing to implement possible, an options menu. I also fixed a number of additional bugs and UX things to hopefully improve the player experience. And finally, the last thing to do, and something I wanted to do entirely myself, design additional levels. I built a total of 30 different levels, playtesting each one to make sure you can complete it and change various parameters to hopefully make the difficulty curve increase throughout the game. I built it into an executable and gave Super Bubble Blast a whirl. And that was it, I was done. I'd built a Puzzle Bobble style game with 30 levels in just 4 days. Or had I? Because you see, arguably, I only wrote about 5% of the code in this game, and the assistant engineered at least most of the other pieces. And while I did do the majority of the art, design levels, and other creative stuff, some of you probably considered this cheating. But is it? And I'm genuinely asking here because I think the line is kind of fuzzy. I know how to code. I could probably have coded all of this game by myself given more time. But if you're an artist, designer, writer, or any other creative but non-technical person, and you want to turn your game idea into something playable, doesn't this help you do that? I mean, how much of this is just a tool in the same way visual scripting is for those folks? Not only that, but forget the agentic stuff for a second. Ask Mode is a fantastic learning tool. The fact that it not only has a knowledge of Unity's systems, but that it can evaluate your actual project and provide contextual advice relating to what you're trying to do is frankly unparalleled. I'm not certain how much of the agentic parts of the AI assistant I would use outside of this experiment. I'm still trying to come to terms with these results, but I will not hesitate to use that ask feature before searching for anything on Google. Not only is it the cheaper part of the tool, but it's like reaching out to someone else on your team that's familiar with the code base or getting advice from a mentor directly. I will frequently lose hours trying to debug some weird esoteric Unity related quirk, and if Ask Mode can save me from tearing my hair out going down one of those rabbit holes, the time saved alone speaks to the value of this tool. And again, this is why I'm in such a bind here, because what does that mean for me and this YouTube channel? My channel has always been about building systems and tools that make development faster and easier. And so is this AI assistant not just the end result of that mentality? Being able to automate so much of the boilerplate stuff and focus on the things you want. I don't really know for sure, but I can see how the value of a plain old tutorial that's generic in its nature becomes redundant when an agent like this can tailor the problem to your project. So it's definitely giving me some things to think about. If you want to check out Unity AI, then you can scan the QR code on screen now, or click the link in the description down below. You can sign up to a 14-day free trial, with the subscription being only $10 a month from there on. Or if you're a paid user, then you already have credits available to use, so all you have to do is install the package. And I really think you should. If for nothing else, I suggest checking out the Ask Mode. But I'm curious to hear about your experiences, so let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. Thanks again to Unity for sponsoring this video. If you'd like to play the game, it's available to download over on my Patreon, which you can become a member of for as little as $1 a month and help support the channel. I managed to get a high score of around 100,000 points, so let me know if you're able to clear all 30 levels and beat my score. If you're interested in more videos like this, then consider checking out one of the ones on screen now. Otherwise, thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you again next time.